The WNBA is set to continue its expansion, but there's a bit of a problem. Those top nostalgia bait names from the 90s, they don't even belong to the W anymore. After letting the trademarks lapse, two companies swooped in and grabbed them up, looking for a payday, literally receiving trademark and ownership to some original WNBA team names. Why? Because for decades, the people at the top of the W treated the league like an afterthought, stapled to the NBA's to-do list, and then put in a drawer no one checked on for 20 years. But now, that drawer is open. The WNBA is realizing they left the keys to their own history inside. I mean, come on, even the Houston Comets, the league's first dynasty, 4-time champions, a name that the league officially let expire in 2021. And while billionaire Tillman Fertitta is trying to bring the team back in 2027, a random company called TSTM Holdings beat them to the punch by just months. The thing is, it's not just Houston. The Detroit Shock, the Cleveland Rockers, names that fans have been begging for, are currently being held hostage by a startup league that hasn't even played a game. The WNBA is now forced into a common law legal battle, arguing that because they still sell Comets jerseys online, they should be able to keep their name. But in the legal world of trademarks, oops are bad isn't a legal defense. So let's walk through how the WNBA's growth era is being threatened by its own past decisions and some mystery companies standing in the way of that sweet nostalgia money. The WNBA's decision to sell to Houston sped up issues the league would have to address eventually, but obviously weren't at the top of their list. The Houston Comets were the WNBA's first dynasty, winning the first 4 championships in the league's history. Now, how the W was making decisions in year 1 is a different deep dive, but by 2003, they were ready to see some proof of concept. The ownership model was changing, and instead of being owned by the league, each team needed its own owner or ownership group to step in. Now, the Comets would make it out of this structure change, but the winning dynasty was over. So when the finances became too much to handle, the then owner of the Rockets and Comets sold the Comets to a furniture salesman. Now, he bought the Comets in the beginning of 2007 and ended up giving them right back to the league by the end of 2008. Finding no other buyers, the team would disband and the league would continue to shrink. And the Comets would still be in the minds of fans, but it wouldn't come back to the forefront of the business table for the WNBA until 2021, when the league failed to renew the registration. And since the actual team hadn't been on the court in over a decade, the trademark was officially considered lapsed and abandoned, meaning it was up for grabs. So if you are in this space with the opportunity to do so, you jump at the chance to trademark squat on the Houston Comets. And that's exactly what TSTM Holdings LLC did. Now, this mysterious company is linked to rapper Travis Scott through legal representatives, but he's in there somewhere. Now, trademark squatting is when someone claims a trademark they don't actually intend to use, and this is usually done to resell or profit from the actual owner. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sticky, because in order to successfully squat, you have to prove intent to use. TSTM has to somehow prove they're going to use the Houston Comets name and branding attached to a legitimate project in development. So in this case specifically, TSTM doesn't have a team, a league, or even a basketball business. That's why the WNBA is able to challenge them. So even though the WNBA and the Houston Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta came up with this great plan to bring back the Comets, TSTM technically holds the rights to use the Comets name on everything from basketball games to streetwear, leaving the league in a weird position of having to sue to get their own history back. So if TSTM can prove the WNBA effectively threw the brand in the trash, then anyone is legally allowed to pick it up and register to use it as their own. They would have to show that between 2001, when the trademark lapsed, and 2024, when TSTM picked it up, the WNBA did absolutely nothing to suggest the Comets were coming back. The WNBA is correctly accusing TSTM of having no real plan to use the name for basketball or apparel. If TSTM can prove the WNBA abandoned the mark and that they have a real business plan for it, they can keep it. Now, if they can't, Tillman Fertitta and the WNBA will likely win it back. So if you're thinking to yourself, TSTM and Travis Scott aren't a basketball league, so the W should be okay, then somewhat legitimately you would be correct. But what if a squatter had enough gumption to take that giant step further? Prove they're going to use it in a basketball related way to ensure they keep the names. Well, let me introduce you to the owner of the WBL, Ryan Reed, who actually stands in the way of the W gaining two other giant names for their league, the Detroit Shock and the Cleveland Rockers. Now, the Shock and the Rockers were each a part of the original 8 teams that launched the WNBA in 1997. Today, they're a part of a new independent organization called the Women's Basketball League, which was started, owned, and operated by Ryan Reed, though again, they have not played a game. The WNBA officially abandoned the Cleveland Rockers trademark in April of 2021. Reed filed for the trademark in September of 2023, and as of February of 2025, the WNBA filed a fresh application to reclaim the name for the upcoming Cleveland expansion team. And here's the snag: the WBL has used the name for minor merchandise. So while the WNBA still has a case, they'll have a harder time proving common law or saying the WBL doesn't intend to use the name. They let the trademark lapse for the Shock after the team relocated in 2009. Because the franchise eventually became the Dallas Wings, the league stopped using the Detroit Shock branding pretty much across the board. So in the case of the Detroit Shock, that is legal abandonment. Ryan Reed successfully registered the name in 2025. The W has been fully denied this name because the WBL's registration is already active. So the WNBA is in trademark limbo. And while they have announced a Detroit team for 2029 and a Cleveland team for 2028, they currently do not legally own these names. And quieter reports indicate they could be considering new names altogether just to avoid these legal battles. Because if they don't win in court, they would have to license these names from the WBL or TSTM forever. And we know that's not happening because it would cost the owners and the players more money than they're willing to part with just for nostalgia's sake. There's certainly a point where all parties are willing to just rename these teams, embrace the change, and move on. They'll acknowledge it happened with a legacy night honoring the early players and teams while pretending they didn't fumble by leaning into modern naming and rebranding, like a taste of the mercury. Because the unfortunate truth is these names weren't stolen. The league simply didn't believe they had enough value to renew them, and that opened the door for someone else. Now, hindsight is 2020. The W is now scrambling to correct their decisions of the past, trying to get ahead of future legal battles. They've already filed requests for the Miami Soul and the Charlotte Sting, noting they've been able to keep the Monarchs' rights over the years. So that's a big sigh of relief. But they almost lost the Portland Fire. We only have this revived team because the league filed its paperwork just weeks before some random squatter tried to. They'll now have a trademark strategy for early filing to expansion teams and keeping an eye on suspicious filings. And while it's less likely, maintaining trademarks if a team folds. So it does help patch a few problems, but those 3 names are still left vulnerable with varying degrees of difficulty to get them back. From where I'm sitting, Houston seems to be the easiest one to get back, making the Houston Comets the test case. If the WNBA can't win against Travis Scott, they will likely be forced to pay significant amounts of money to Ryan Reed to get the Rockers and Shock name back. Or again, they'll just give up and pick new names entirely. But the Fertitta's team already launched HoustonComets.com and has taken deposits, meaning they are banking on winning this case or quietly settling to make TSTM go away. I would say the Comets being the easiest one is lucky. It's the biggest of the franchises and the only dynasty. The Rockers would be the next to reclaim in difficulty, but there's already fan sentiment to just rename it. I mean, it's named after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It just doesn't seem to fit the 2028 age. Of all the teams, I think they should embrace the change the most, get the fans involved, but commit to legacy night like throwback jerseys and team editions that honor the Rockers. And then the hardest one is obviously the Shock. I mean, it literally belongs to Ryan Reed and the WBL. Honestly, one of the WNBA's more successful teams from the early 2000s, and they may have to just let it go. This entire trademark mess is one of the WNBA's biggest "what is this guy doing" moments. And that's saying something for a league that's had more than a few organizational faceplants. Because on the surface, it may just look like a paperwork slip up, but underneath is actually proof of how the league was run for years, under-resourced, under-prioritized, and treated like a side project instead of a professional sports league. The W literally lost its own IP. Not stolen, not challenged, lost, because they let the Comets trademark lapse in 2021, opening the door for random company X to take their legacy. That's not growing pains, that's disregard. It's downright embarrassing, and it's the same pattern fans have been calling out for years. No scouting infrastructure, no requirements on staff, no standards on facilities, no investment in the basics that every other pro league treats as a non-negotiable. The Comets situation is just the most public example because it's happening at the exact moment the league is trying to bring back its most iconic franchise. They're finally realizing how bad the neglect was, but at least they're trying to correct it. Trademark protection, expansion planning, scouting, player development, marketing. The W has identified multiple areas that need real investment, not vibes. So if you want to walk through their areas of opportunity for scouting, check out this video.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.